Welcome back to Money Matters. We're here on Inauguration Day, and we're talking, we're blipping through a whole bunch of topics and trying to focus on what might happen in the first 100 days. Not what might happen over the next 4 years, or what might happen secondarily or tertiarily out of policy, but what might actually happen in the first 100 days. We hit two things right toward the end. One was the Affordable Care Act and changes to it that might occur, and the other was tax policy, both of which are sort of within the grasp of the president
and the Republican Congress.
The Republican Congress to affect rather quickly. We were just finishing up with ACA, Affordable Care Act. I was spouting off about the fact that whatever anybody says, you know, if anybody says any different than what I'm about to say, it's just static. Everybody at core agrees that there needs to be universal health care. There needs to be a delivery system for health care to the population of the United States. That simply is a core value, and it's been a core value that we've been working towards since FDR.
But it's unlikely that even though that will be politically charged and will, create a lot of media coverage, it's unlikely that particular item is going to move the broad markets in general. I don't see that moving the bond market. I don't see it could move certain sectors of the equity market, but that's already kind of been priced in.
That's exactly right.
So that's unlikely to move your investments in your 401k too much.
And so my take is a lot of rhetoric in the first 100 days, a lot of votes, a lot of hair pulling and teeth gnashing, not a whole lot of change, because this is a core administrative responsibility and issue. Will the ACA go away? Nope. Will its name get changed? Probably. For ego purposes, why would you call it Obamacare? So will it go away? No. Will it get changed? Absolutely. Should it get changed? Absolutely. Everybody agrees that it needs to get changed. But it's not going to go away. And what will the changes look like? Who knows? They will be tiny, and there'll be thousands of them, and they'll be incremental in nature, because no one is going to throw 30 million people off of insurance.
No.
It's just not going to happen. So everybody can calm down about that. The next big one is tax. Tax is just fascinating. There's $2.5 trillion of U.S. corporation capital trapped offshore. If they bring it back at a 35% tax rate. There needs to be a tax holiday, a holiday that allows all the money to come back in at, say, 15% tax.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. There's so many different ways that they're discussing structuring corporate tax reform. I mean, that's obviously one aspect of it. The other is just lowering corporate taxes in general, and to what can you lower that? Where are you actually going to generate that the other tax revenue that's needed? And then back to those tariffs, the trade tariffs and that type of thing. That I believe that a portion of that is actually trying to not just lower our taxes here, but lower what we tax. Apparently, we don't have a worldwide tax system, and every other country does. Every other developed country does. So making us a worldwide tax so that we actually are not motivating people to keep motivating companies to have funds sitting somewhere else because they don't have to pay taxes on them. We need to have where we pay taxes on everything that's earned by an American company.
That's correct.
So that was a big one. If that happens, that would be tremendous. That could be super positive for the markets.
It could be super positive. It's all in the first 100 days. Prediction is that you will see some actual changes in tax policy approved. There'll be then a massive slowdown before any further changes take place, because the infrastructure and study and economic backup that's needed to assess exactly where the money's coming from and how the deficit is going to be, not the deficit, the budget deficit is going to be affected. That's all hard work that has to be done on the heels of a dramatic tax change of any kind.
Well, nobody ever agrees on that. We're always looking at budgets that are trillions of dollars in difference in expectations with every little change. So economists are all over the place with those expectations. But by and large, I mean,
corporations will vote, and shareholders will vote with market activity.
Absolutely,
They will vote.
and if they have reduced taxes, then obviously they're going to have more funds that they can go out and invest. In theory, that they can go out and invest in jobs, R&D, technology, things like that. That of course just have that trickle down effect.
Right.
In theory, so all of that's positive, and the economic forum that's going on in Davos right now, where they're interviewing CEOs every day and all the other global economists, whatever they are, that I'm losing this morning. They've all actually been quite positive. I mean,
Yes.
it's not even necessarily walking the line, but most CEOs, their optimism is increasing. Interestingly, the man on the street, his optimism is sort of flat. But CEOs' optimism is actually increasing. That's usually a good sign, because that means that they see a little bit more visibility. When they see visibility, they can make changes. One of the problems that we had actually up until the election was a lack of visibility. And so we saw sort of sideways markets because there was so little visibility on what would be going on with interest rates, what's going to be going on with taxes. Now, because there seems to be a little bit more bold-faced print out there, again, good, bad, and ugly, it seems that CEOs are more willing to make some changes because they can see.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it'll be interesting to see if that continues or if that blows up. But
Another big change. We have in the mortgage market, Housing and Urban Development, HUD. We have USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. We have the FHA, Federal Housing Administration. We have Ginnie Mae Securities. We have a whole infrastructure of government support and government guarantees for an enormous sector of the housing market. You remember in the Great Crash that junk bonds were one of the triggers, not the cause, but one of the triggers that brought the whole castle down, right? Those mortgages, those subprime mortgages, have not come back to any great extent. But what has grown astronomically is FHA mortgages. FHA mortgages are mortgages that allow people with a little bit less income and a little bit less credit to put 3.5% down in order to buy a house. In this area, a mortgage up to $350,000. The interest rates are great. The qualification for the mortgages is a little bit easier than Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and that's grown astronomically. There is a powerful movement in Washington to get the FHA out of the mortgage business, to change that. It's seen by Republican purists as an example of government interference in the markets. We do that, and we have a crash in the housing market
again,
and that in turn leads to all kinds of difficult consequences.
And that's certainly possible, except that, as we've said several times, balance sheets across the board are definitely much healthier now. So there would be less room to fall. I don't think it would be quite as catastrophic as what we saw during the Great Recession. Number one, because we haven't come back up to where we were.
To where we were, right.
But number two, just because most people's balance sheets have been cleaned up by going through whatever difficult processes they had to.
That's right.
Bankruptcies, foreclosures, consolidations. Simplifying.
I heard news on the way in the car, and I cannot remember. It was a study just completed by either Columbia, somebody at Columbia, or at Wharton School of Business. I'm not sure exactly. It was one of the very, very top business schools. But the study had been on the last repatriation tax holiday of U.S. corporate funds trapped offshore. It was in 2004, and about $600 million came back in. A close study was made of that $600 million, and it was discovered that the biggest beneficiary was corporate dividends. There was no major impact on job creation or reinvestment. It's highly likely, according to this study, that with $2.5 trillion coming back in, that the stock market would enjoy a glorious period because dividends and other investor-friendly
It
actions
just improves the bottom line, yeah.
would improve. Yeah. So
that's an optimistic perspective. Maybe we should end on our optimistic perspective. So I think it's fair to say that we are going to be looking at some really interesting volatility for the next couple of months, and it could be caused by any number of things. Again, it always creates opportunity, but we could see a little bit more moving and shaking than we've seen in the last.
absolutely.
last
I
few
think it's going to
months.
give us plenty. That's one prediction for the next 100 days. Emily and I are going to have plenty to talk about.
Hopefully you will too. So please send us your ideas. We love hearing from you. Check us out on Facebook. Send us emails. Give us a call. And until next week, this has been Money Matters.